Hey guys, today we're going to talk about some finance tips and tricks on how you can afford the new Tesla Model Y, so if you're interested, stay tuned. First off, I want to clarify that I'm not a financial advisor, but I do have a lot of personal finance experience. I bought my Model 3, I bought many other cars, and so I just wanted to share the little tips and tricks that I've learned on how to buy cars. Buying any car, not just a Tesla, is one of the biggest purchases in any household, so it's a good idea to run the numbers and figure out how or if you can afford it before you just buy it and impulse buy it and then deal with the financial blow later. In today's world, everybody needs a car, but that doesn't mean you should just buy whatever car you want because it's cool or you like it. You should really run the financial numbers and see, based on your salary and your lifestyle, what you can actually afford. Now, I know everybody is different, and so maybe you want to put more money into the cars and less money somewhere else, like investments, and that's fine, but just keep in mind that this is a general type of analysis for your everyday person. Also keep in mind that cars are considered depreciating assets, which basically means they're just a big, fat, huge expense. So that's how I've always looked at them, as just basically a big expense that you're not really going to get anything out of later, because once you sell the car you traded in, it's not going to be worth very much. So that's where it's kind of just a big, fat expense. And basically a car is like a tool for your everyday life. And so if you talk to any personal wealth experts, I think they're going to tell you that buying a car in general is never a good financial buy, just because it is a big expense, basically. So if you're basically going to spend all this money in a car in a quote-unquote big expense, what I always like to do is ROI the crap out of my cars, which basically just means buy one car and keep it for as long as you can. That way you get the most return on investment on it. So basically that's after you buy the car, you pay the car off, then the car isn't as expensive because you're not paying monthly payments on it. So that's why usually when I buy cars, I drive them for at least 10 years so I can maximize my ROI. So here are some cardinal rules to look into if you're going to buy a new car, in our case, the Model Y. So the first one is, if you can buy the car in full cash, then you can definitely afford the car, because it's going to be just like buying anything else you buy from Amazon or grocery store or whatever. So obviously, probably only about 1% of us can buy a car in full cash, but the one takeaway from that is the down payment. So I'm going to explain a little bit more on that later. So your first rule is don't spend more than 35% of your gross income on a car. And let's take the cheapest Model Y right now, which is the long range all wheel. That variant is about $53K. So if you're going to finance the entire car, you need to make about $155,000 a year to be able to actually afford it. So in my opinion, financing an entire car is a horrible idea because your monthly payment is going to be super high. So that's another reason why you'd want to at least put some down payment on there to lower your monthly payment. So now maybe if you live in Silicon Valley or here in the Bay Area where I live, $155,000 isn't really that much because there's the tech industry here. People make a lot of money here. Standard of living is super high. So maybe that's not a lot of money for you. But I think for the vast majority of the country, especially maybe the Midwest or like Texas, wherever where the standard of living is a lot lower, $155,000, even with dual income in a household, is probably quite a bit of money. So that's another reason why you'd want to save for a down payment before you buy a car. So that is why saving for a down payment before you even think about buying a car is a smart idea. Or maybe even a trade-in if you're going to trade in your old car. But that, I think, if you're going to trade in especially an old car, is going to be not a very big hit to that new car that you're buying. So saving for the down payment, I think, is the smarter option. Or hey, you could also do both, save for a down payment and do a trade-in. And so that'll give you a little more bump for a lower monthly payment. Now, of course, there is also the debate that if you finance the entire car, you can invest that money at a higher rate than your interest loan is. And that you could do, but that's basically for another video and not for this video. But usually if you're going to need a loan for anything, you should probably put a down payment down. Like I said before, that way your monthly isn't so high and it's not as big a financial burden month to month. So here's the general strategy that personal wealth experts will tell you if you're looking into buying a car, and it's the 20-4-10 rule. So I'll go over that now. So the first general rule is 20, which means 20% down. So if we take our long range all wheel example, that's about $11K. And so just for some perspective, when I bought my Model 3 in 2018, I put about 57% down. So That's just 20% as a minimum, but the more you put down, the lower your monthly payment's going to be. And according to Edmunds, the reason why you want to put 20% down is because anytime you drive a new car off the lot, automatically right there you're going to lose about 9% of the car in depreciation. And so that's why you want to put 20 down. And also because after the first year, a lot of times most of the cars or a lot of cars lose about 19% of their value. So that's another reason why you want to put 20% down. And also on top of that, the car it's basically called underwater. And so basically you don't want your loan to be underwater, because what that means is basically if you were to sell the car, if you were to put a lower down payment down and you were to sell the car, you would probably, underwater means you're going to actually owe more money after you sell the car to pay off your loan. And so you don't want to do that. If you're going to sell your car, you want to just pay off your entire loan, and hopefully you have even a little bit of extra for you. And check this out as well. If you were to put down $11K on your car, your gross income for the car now becomes $124,000 a year instead of $155,000, because now you're only gonna finance basically $44,000 instead of $43,000 instead of $54,000. So that's something to look at also, and why down payments are very important. The second rule is 4, which means 4-year loans and lower. And so the reason why you want to do that is because obviously the longer the loan, the more interest the bank is going to make off you. Another reason too is basically a lot of times in general, after 4 years, cars kind of aren't worth very much. So like I said, depreciating asset, which means it's basically a big expense. So this is another reason why I like to ROI the crap out of my cars, because if you paid off a 4-year loan and let's say you drive your car for 10 years, that means you have 6 years of no car payments, which means you're getting a greater use out of the car and making more money out of it. Or basically spending less money to maintain that car and keep your transportation, which is always a good thing. And also remember, the 4-year loan is the longest you're going to have the loan, because that's when it ends, and you can always pay it off sooner. So like my Model 3 loan is 4 years, but I'm planning to pay it off at the end of this year, which would mean I'd pay the whole thing off in 2 years, which means less interest I'm paying to the bank. So you can always think about that too, if you have extra money laying around that you can throw at it to, clear your loan faster. And the third rule is 10, which means 10% of your monthly income. So if we put this all together, you put $11K down, that means you have $43K left on the loan, which means that your monthly payment should be no more than about $1,000. And if we were to load in that 4-year loan with about a 4-ish% interest rate, which is what I found for my area for right now, and this, obviously your actual loan is going to be based on your credit score and your history. So I think for me personally, mine would be a little bit lower, but for the current times. But basically, if you were to load all that in, you get about $980 something. So it's under the 1,000 that we're looking at for 10%. So everything checks out and you're good to go. So in my opinion, having a $1,000 a month car payment is quite a bit. And the way you fix that is you put a bigger down payment down. So that's why down payments are really important. And another reason is if there's some sort of emergency or a loss of income, then that financial burden isn't as big, and you might be able to find a way to get by for a couple months to pay that, rather than having a huge monthly and then kind of be SOL and you're gonna have to get the car repossessed or something like that. So these are my tips and tricks on figuring out if you can afford a brand new Tesla Model Y. So looking at these general rules and your finances, are you able to afford a Model Y right now? Or do you need to keep saving? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.